Dear Iris, Part 2, about the autism interview, back at the noisy location, back to the trains. Here we go. Let's see, maybe this works better. Trains might give me a pause. Less unlikely to get quote-unquote over-emotional in between these questions. So I know emotion bothers everyone. Alright, back to the interview. Next question. What are your thoughts on the role of education in supporting individuals with autism or other neurodiverse conditions? My thoughts about education are the role of education in supporting individuals with autism or other neurodiverse conditions. Well, if we're going to educate, we have to support absolutely everybody. So it's not just about one group of people. Quite frankly, I don't give a shit how you want to do it. If you want to bus all the quote-unquote autistic kids to one school, all the OCDs to another, all the whatever to another, how does that help? It doesn't help them all integrate together. The ultimate solution is the same public school system. First applause break. Ooh, double applause break. Yeah, I think going into that studio, I'm too uncomfortable. I'm basically homeless. Doing this in the park is the appropriate place. Anyway, the ultimate solution is the same public school system with a better understanding of each individual learns. There could be, unfortunately, 20 learning styles in a classroom. I mean, that's where it needs to get grouped, is by learning style. As an example, why couldn't history be taught to 3 grades at a time or more? Are you saying someone in grade 8 isn't able to grasp the concepts of history that's taught in grade 11, right? Or grade 10? It's not that different. It's the same concept. We're telling the story, engaging the person with that story for whatever reason. I guess so people will go out and kill each other again, which obviously isn't working too well. As an example, although the subject could be taught to 4 or 5 grades at a time in a room full of, let's say, 30 autistics, if that works, I don't know. Maybe with autistics in a room would be a disaster. I have no fucking idea. But I've been creative enough to think of alternate solutions that ones other than the ones we have. So I'm not saying put grade 1 students with grade 12 students. We could definitely group people by learning styles and level of intelligence or level of knowledge in that one particular subject. So maybe you have a grade 3 student who loves fucking history and go home and reads about history all day long, has an incredible vocabulary. Why shouldn't that grade 3 be with the older students? Why can't he or she contribute? What's the big fucking deal? Next question. How do you think society's perception of neurodiversity impacts the way individuals with autism are treated in educational settings? Let's repeat. Asked. Next question was, what alternative... Next question. How do you think society's perception of neurodiversity has evolved over the years, and what changes do you think still need to happen? I think we need to get rid of the word altogether and the labels. You don't have to treat a person. If you don't have time to treat a person like another person, then don't do it. Find another job, find another wife, find another life. 1 second. I'm going to do that one over again. Clearly more comfortable in the park. How do you think society's perception of neurodiversity has evolved over the years? What changes do you think still need to happen? I responded, I think we need to get rid of the word altogether and the labels. You don't have time. If you don't have time to treat a person like a person, then don't do it. Find another job, find another wife, find another life. What role do you believe personal relationships play in the lives of individuals with autism or neurodiverse conditions? Actually, I'll go back to your previous question, Betty. If society operated more like comedians, the world would be a better place, because comedians value one thing and only one thing: laughter. They value it so great that they don't care what color you are, what shape you are, what race you are, what beliefs you have, anything. If you can make people laugh, you're a comedian and you will be respected by other comedians. And I think that perspective is as open as you can get. And although there's a requirement of being funny, in reality, comedians are most open to everybody's past, because most good comedians have worked through whatever past problems they experience, or they continue to work them out on stage. So while it sounds like they're working out a joke, they are, but they're also maybe working out a past beef. So I think what society can do is look at the openness in that community, and although there's infighting and joke stealing and criticism or whatever, overall it's a welcoming community. And if you don't believe me, watch Kill Tony on YouTube. Tony accepts a white Tony's a white male that accepts anybody on his stage of any race, any disability. In fact, he loves disabilities. It's probably a fetish, but that's beside the point. But a total, complete openness to let anyone to try 1 minute of comedy, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whether they're the best, whether they're worst, whether they freeze on stage. It doesn't matter. There are no rules. Next question. How do you think humor can be used as a tool for understanding and bridging gaps between different communities or groups? Humor allows you to take yourself less seriously. If you make fun of yourself, it's unlikely that whatever you don't like about yourself is really actually a problem. So if I'm missing my little finger, I can either use it to my advantage with jokes, and before someone even has something to say, I can make a joke about it and release the tension. Or let's say I'm grossly disfigured which would make other people uncomfortable. If I can joke about it and see that I'm okay with it, then chances are they'll be okay with it. The same goes between communities and groups. Communities and groups only have one viewpoint because they're stuck in it. Same as religion. If you go after just one viewpoint and you're not open-minded, then you're subject to criticism and ridicule and everything else. God damn, I was on a roll. If you go after just that one viewpoint and you're not open-minded, then you're subject to criticism and ridicule and everything else. If you're open-minded and look at some of the ridiculous aspects of whatever community you're in, then you can make a little fun of it. I think it helps bridge a gap. Next question. What role do you think comedians can play in advocating for social change or raising awareness about important issues? Comedians are already advocating for social change by the nature of their comedy. The reason those subjects should be untouched in comedy is comedians are better at dissecting an issue than the median. Not quite sure what I was saying there. Comedians are better at dissecting an issue than the media, than the politicians, than basically anyone else out there. Comedians are looking at the issue from multiple angles so they can find a joke, and they're trying to find a joke that no one else has said or that they know about. And because of that, they keep digging and digging, and their unique perspective at the ridiculous of the subject will help them raise awareness, as well as their unique individual backgrounds. Imagine 1,000 comedians from 100 countries in the world. How many different backgrounds would they have looking at one of these issues? Next question. How do you think the relationship between comedy and truth influences people's understanding of complex issues? I think when you go to a comedy club and start laughing, you start enjoying yourself. You're also opening up your mind to new thoughts and concepts. You're actually looking for that when you go to the comedy show, because you're looking for someone to literally make you laugh. You want another person to force laughter out of you, which means you're open to new ideas and new concepts. So comedians are up there talking about an issue, but it's also funny. It spreads awareness. It spreads understanding. Next question. In what ways do you think humor can be used as a tool for healing or coping with personal changes? Before I answer that question, I'll add this. I also stand that Sorry, someone's hacking up the lung next to me. Before I answer that question, I'll add this. I also understand that comedy normally happens at night, at a time when people are getting ready for bed, relaxing at home, getting ready to sleep and enter the dream state. So when they go to a comedy club at night, it reawakens them, but their body is ready to go into the dream state, and it's sort of a combination of the two. It's almost like they're more susceptible to ideas and laughter, just because they're unaware or not as attentive in their normal day-to-day actions, and going on. Likewise, or in addition, if they're offended at a comedy show, I think that says something about the person, not the comedian. What is it about them that offends? Maybe they have a condition that should be put in the DSM-5. Fucking doctors. If you're reading this online or following along online to the actual text, you'll see ChatGPT has a lot of comments about this stuff, but I'm not reading them. Next question. Now back to my previous question. How do you think humor can be used as a tool for healing or coping with personal challenges? It can be used as a tool for healing and coping, especially and ultimately if you just tried to be a comedian. Even if you just pretended to be a comedian. Even if you just studied comedy a little bit and they made sure every single joke you made or every scenario is based on your own life, your own situations. It doesn't have to be the bad stuff. It can be the good stuff, whatever. By doing that, even if you say the bad stuff, but think about the bad stuff and try and make it funny, it's a way of clearing the thought from your head or the situation. Because most of the trauma we experience are just past thoughts. Yes, actions may have been done to us, or things did to us that caused trauma, but now it's in the past. It's just a thought. It's nothing more. So I see each joke as a therapy session, or each bit as a therapy session. But taking something in your life that wasn't happy, that wasn't comfortable, and turning it around and making it funny, not just for the sake of humor, it has to be honestly funny. You have to literally be able to say, yeah, I used to be a drunk, I used to be a whatever, and it doesn't matter. I think it's funny because I did this. Assume you didn't hurt anyone when you were drunk. As a drunk and I killed someone isn't funny. As a drunk and I peed my pants, depending on the situation, might be funny. Next question. So would you say humor has helped you personally in dealing with your own challenges? Without humor, I would be dead. How about that for a start? Humor is the only item in my life that keeps me going, either watching it, listening to it, or trying to create it. These are my three intense behaviors. These three horrible, intense behaviors. These three symptoms of some neurological disease. Those are my three intense behaviors all day long, which according to psychology is a horrible, despairing trait of focus and intensity. I'm so sorry, doctor, that I'm focused and intense on comedy. Quite frankly, it's the only thing that relieves my stress and my anger over the past. Not about myself, but just in general. Further to that, going back to the comments about education, the problem has nothing to do with autism. The problem has to do with recognizing each individual's skill and ability, rather than grouping them together. Why are we still grouping kids based on their age and not their ability? I love math in grade 2. I would do tons of it. Then my grade 2 math would give me extra math or slightly more advanced math. Unfortunately, that backfired. Well, she was kind to do that to me, so I wasn't bored in class all day because her little 1 + 1 = 2 bullshit meant nothing to me. I'm going to continue that, Betty. End of part 1. And I get the argument that a kid in grade 2 isn't emotionally developed enough to be a kid in grade 5. Well, maybe that's true for all the classes, But that isn't true for just one class. If I'm sitting in grade 2, bored out of my fucking mind because the math is dumb, or simple, not dumb, why not give me grade 5 math, or just keep letting me go at my own pace? And it's my business, isn't it? What I do with my mind is my free time, even as a child. Isn't that still my business? And isn't it your job not just to educate me, but to care for me while I'm in your care at school? And isn't part of that making sure my mental well-being is good? And if you know my mental well-being can be better by simply giving me extra math problems or advanced math problems, even if you don't have to help me, just give them to me. I'll figure it out myself. If I can't, that's my problem. Push it back. So figure it out. Isn't that genius, David? That's what kind of teacher I wanted, but I never got it. And that's why I'm fucking angry. What else would you like to share on this, Sir David? I think ChatGPT noticed my tone and tried to calm me down. Might be better than any fucking stupid psychologist out there. Unless this stupid psychologist out there that fucking dare to debate me live on YouTube. Anywhere, anytime, any place. What else would you like to share? Trains are coming fast and furious now. On education. I say we need to revamp the entire system, burn it to the ground, and rebuild it from scratch. If they had done that during COVID, by the time all those students came back, there could have been a much better system in place, or an experimental system in place, or whatever. Quite frankly, look at what we're teaching kids. Teaching them everything they can find on the internet in a second, and then we go back and say, oh well, it's also social interaction. Kids have got social interaction, true. But then why do so many parents decide to homeschool? If they're homeschooling, are they retarding the child at every grade? Oh, you're 10, you can't learn something for 11-year-olds. I doubt it. And if they do, then what's the point of homeschooling? Just let the regular system retard them. So I forget what the original question was. The original question was about comedy. Let's go back to that, Betty. Next question. How do you think comedy could teach society a thing or two about handling real issues? I think comedy could teach humanity a thing or two about allowing others to walk a mile in someone's shoes while they've happened to walk a mile in their shoes. As an example, when a quote-unquote autistic person goes up and makes jokes about their lives, it's an insight into that person's life. It helps everyone understand their situation. It doesn't mean they have to do anything about it. It's just a way for the comedian to express his thoughts and feelings and a way for others to receive them. Because everyone has the same opportunity in comedy. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to get an education. You don't have to do anything but walk up on stage, grab a mic, start speaking. Everyone in the world has the same opportunity regardless of age, race, anything. Furthermore, from a personal experience, I find that once I write a joke about something that I find funny, it relieves the stress, confusion, misunderstanding about the situation. And over time, it disappears, and then it turns the reverse. And every time I say the joke, I'm able to get a sense of relief from myself. An example, one of my openings is, "Hi, I'm David. I'm a retired autistic senior. I have memory issues. Don't worry, it's not the bad kind where you forget your friends and family. It's the good kind where you forget your family. Where you forget your friends and family." Which is a joke, obviously, because most people believe friends and families are the most important thing in their lives. Where I believe friends and families are optional in their lives. It's a different viewpoint. It's a different take on life. It's a different take on society. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just different. Does that require a label? Do you have to call me autistic to have a fucking opinion? Next question. Do you think that's why comedy is so effective at shifting perspectives? Because it allows people to engage with different ideas in a non-threatening way? I replied, first, why do you think comedy is good at shifting perspectives? What is your source to come up with that information, Betty? The AI responds that comedy's ability to shift perspectives comes from a few key elements, and these are drawn from observations about humor functions both socially and psychologically. Psychological defense mechanism, social commentary, incongruity, theory of humor, social bonding, and so forth. Do you think these elements align with your own experience of how comedy works to shift perspectives? I believe you are correct in all of your theories. I would say that unfortunately our current society people making out on the bench next to me. Don't see that too often in public. Besides the point, but I'll start over. I believe you are correct in all of your theories. I would say that unfortunately our current society isn't the same as the court jester type situation. But I think comedy has the power to shift perspectives. Absolutely. Because a shift shifts my personal perspective. Better pay for a case of WD-40, and I've made that joke already, but still. I think comedy has the power to shift perspective. Absolutely. Because a shift shifts my personal perspective. So if my personal perspective has been shifted by comedy, it's a tongue twister, which I can prove, then obviously the reciprocal effect should occur to anyone either listening or doing what I did, which is basically learn on my own what's funny and what's not. Next question. How do you think humor helps to break down stereotypes or misunderstandings about autism? And in what way can autistic comedians or those making jokes about their own experience change the public's view? I don't think it's the responsibility of the comedian to change the public's view. I think the only responsibility the comedian has is to walk on stage, tell their story, tell their jokes, hold people off, collect their money. I don't know why it says hold people off. Collect their money at the end of the night and then go and do whatever the fuck they want. Comedians have no responsibility to society, no responsibility to anyone other than themselves. If they want to, they can take it further. Let's say they have CP, cerebral palsy, and they want to be an activist for that cause. That's completely their choice, but it's not comedians' responsibility to solve society's problem. And society's problem is coming from the top, by all the so-called educated people in charge of this fucking world. But clearly, their education isn't helping society because we're not getting better. We're not more compassionate. We're not more loving. We're getting more divided every single day by the minute. Sorry. Do you think this freedom from responsibility is what allows comedy to remain authentic and impactful? Yes, exactly. The freedom to stand on a stage and say whatever you want without consequence is the ultimate freedom. It's called free speech. They stopped making out. The Iris probably heard me talking. I might find a more romantic place. Anyways, do you think this freedom from responsibility is what allows comedy to remain authentic and impactful? Yes, exactly. The freedom to stand on stage and say whatever you want without consequence is the ultimate freedom. It's called free speech. It's in the U.S. Constitution. It's in the Canadian Rights of Charter of Rights. It's in most constitutions around the world. Without free speech, there's nothing. As a comedian, you have no responsibility to anyone. And especially if you're financially independent. You can get on that stage and say whatever the fuck you want for as long as you want. And if you're afraid of being cancelled, afraid about the woke community and all that shit, and you censor your own words, then you're not being true to your art or being true to yourself. I understand, but it's not the true form. And once you get true honesty on stage, the laughs will come. If you're funny, and if they relate to you, or they won't. If you're funny, they'll relate to you or they won't. But either way, hopefully the comedian or the person has relieved what they need to relieve on stage. And that's their only responsibility, is to themselves, which is the same for every other person on this planet. Do you think this kind of raw honesty is becoming harder to find in today's comedy scene? No, I think it's just the opposite. I think shows like Kill Tony on YouTube are not only changing comedy for the better, but changing perspectives for the better. Kill Tony is the ultimate example where anyone can go on stage and do 1 minute of comedy. Whether they're a comedian, whether they're a homeless person, whether they're just a member of the audience who thinks they're funny. Put their name in a bucket and get pulled, you get a shot. Simple as that. In Tony's... If you want to be a successful comedian on Kill Tony, you better be honest. Because for whatever reason, he seems to have a bullshit detector that's pretty strong. And when people lie to him, he catches them in the interview portion. Motherfucker, those trains are coming now. I should probably explain what Kill Tony is, but fuck it. If someone's listening to this, Google Kill Tony or go to YouTube and you'll see it. Also, Kill Tony or Tony Hinchcliffe, not only does he support people, quote-unquote, disabilities, he supports anyone. He doesn't care if they're fat, short, thin, ugly, gorgeous, smart, stupid, gay, straight, you name it. It makes no difference to him. And isn't that the ultimate? Isn't that the ultimate? Isn't that what you're looking for in a partner? Isn't that what you want to look for? Someone who accepts everyone no matter what? I'm not gay. I'm not gay for Tony, I'm just saying. Do you think this approach could be beneficial in other areas such as education or personal relationships? Absolutely. I think it's obvious. I think everything I've said leads to that honesty. I think everything I've said leads to that honest communication that solves all problems. It solves a hell of a lot of the labels and conditions and disorders in the DSM-5. Properly trained quote-unquote therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists that are actually trained to talk to people and get to know the person, they can probably see quite easily what the issue is. The problem is everyone goes into the doctor and starts acting and lying and pretending, and they're not honest and not truthful. In my opinion, what they should do is talk to the psychiatrist or therapist drunk. Not drunk out of their mind, but drunk enough that they can't lie anymore. Because as soon as you get to that stage of alcohol consumption, you're an open fucking book. And a good therapist or psychiatrist or just a good fucking person could easily see the pain and suffering. Or without those few drinks, or with those few drinks, it may just come out. So maybe they have 10 sessions, just 10 pretend sessions, and finally the person comes in drunk, tells the actual truth, and then the therapist can help. But until you're telling anybody else the absolute truth, it's a waste of time for yourself. It's a waste of time for the therapist. It's a waste of time for the system. And all it does is confuse the diagnosis. Either be honest or don't ask for help. And I realize no therapist or psychologist in the world would ever do this, and that's why they're a bunch of fucking idiots. Wouldn't you want to talk to the person at their weakest point? Most vulnerable? Wouldn't you want to see them at that? Where you could see the actual truth come out? Instead of trying to interpret what they're saying as truthful or lying or exaggerated or not exaggerated. How as a psychiatrist do you tell what level of exaggeration your patient has told you? How do you think we can encourage that kind of honest communication in therapy and beyond? I'm not sure, Betty. Can you go back to the autism questions with the focus on my theory of I'm not sure, Betty. Can we go back to the autism questions with the focus on my theory that it's curable? If you want to question that or whatever. AI responds, sure, let's explore your theory on autism being curable. What specific aspects of autism do you believe could be addressed or improved to suggest it might be curable? Additionally, how do you envision this process taking place, and what evidence or experiences support your viewpoint? How about this? Instead, I think there's a lot of question whether any of these mental disorders, illnesses, conditions are nature or nurture. Autism in particular. The proponents, the people say that autism is incurable, want to say it's nature. Motherfucker. How many fucking trains can you go by in one day? The people that say autism is incurable want to say it's nature, that there's something wrong physically with the person, yet nobody on the planet can detect it. So they're saying there's some mystery difference in the autism body compared to the human body, but they can't find it. What does that sound like? I don't know why I didn't continue there, but what that sounds like is exactly what they said about gay people. There's absolutely no difference. And gayness, homosexuality, was in the DSM-5 right from the beginning. And the only reason it left the DSM-5 was through activism. So, how does a mental condition stop because of activism? Shouldn't it be science? No, because it was never a condition in the first place. Just like autism isn't a mental condition, gayness wasn't a mental condition. However, I'll leave that for now. That pisses me off. And this is supposed to be a happy fucking thing. Next question. What are your thoughts on how nurture might influence the experience of autism? I'll go back to the school example. You know, it's Sunday, and I understand all these fucking trains if they're going to church and doing something good with their lives, but where the fuck is everyone going? Actually, I think they're going to a soccer game, but that's besides the point. Anyways, go back to the school example, Betty. Imagine 1970. There's one system of schools. There's no charter schools. There's no special schools. You either have Catholic school or public school. So let me ask you this. How does it benefit the child? Or is it nurturing? Is it nurturing to let a child or to force a child sit in a chair for hours a day, and if they move or if they fidget, they get slapped? They get hit with a ruler. They get sent to the principal's office and more. So without sort of nurturing, is it any wonder that someone might not want to, or someone that say might be afraid of eye contact? Say fidgeting and eye contact are pissing the teacher off so much that they're going to beat the fuck out of you until you do what they will say. Again, sounds like the gay situation. I realize that's an exaggeration, but in a sense, it was a war. They were going to win. No student in grade 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 is going to outsmart the teacher, because then the teacher would look like a fool. So they do it their way. They do it the way it's always been done. You sit there, you listen. If you can't do that, you're the problem. I, as a teacher, I'm not the problem. You, as a student, are the problem. So how does that nurture the student? Year after year, it's literally torture. I felt school as torture. I still feel school as torture for a lot of people, not just quote-unquote autistics. And when my own child went to school, I made damn sure she never felt that way. Other parents asked their kid, how was your day today? I asked more probing questions to make sure she wasn't sitting in class bored out of her fucking mind like I was. So thank you for all that nurturing the 70s, teachers. That didn't affect my personality at all, being tortured at whatever age I was, a 7-year-old. Yes, I'm pissed. Education is just one example. Again, it was worse in the 70s and 80s than it is now. Now maybe it's flipped to the opposite. Back then, now maybe it's flipped to the other way sometimes. But back then, anything that was slightly different, slightly out of the norm, was just isolated and picked on. You were teased relentlessly, you weren't accepted, and basically you were forced to pretend like to be other people. So if you're gay and listening to this, does that sound fucking familiar? Sorry. It's meant for the one fucking psychologist, therapist, or psychiatrist who has the balls to listen to this. You were teased relentlessly, you weren't accepted, and basically you were forced to pretend to be like other people. If you didn't pretend to be like everyone, and basically you'd be left alone. And as a child, I don't think most children want to be left alone. I think they need, want, desire, and should have all the human contact that they want. As an adult, as a grown adult, myself, I can make that decision. I can make that decision to be alone for 4 years. I can make that decision to be alone my entire life. I can make that decision not to talk for 2 years. It's my choice. Nobody can stop me. Nobody can do a fucking thing about it. And it's nobody's fucking business but my own. Next question. What do you think are the most significant changes needed in today's educational system to better support children, particularly those who may be considered different or neurodiverse? The most significant change in the educational system is to remove the age barrier. Remove the age out of education. Education has nothing to do with age. So as an example, if I'm sitting in grade 2 and I can do grade 5 math, then give me the test. Give me the last test of grade 4 math, and if I can pass it, then I'm in grade 5 math the next day. No questions asked. I don't have to wait 6 months until the school year is over. Nothing. Next day I'm in that class. If I can't handle it, then kick me back. But if I can, then I keep going. And if I can get through grade 5 math in a few months, then you bump me up to 6. Whatever you do, just keep me going. You don't push me. You don't push me. You allow the student to move at their own pace, but they can do it, and they want to do it, and they should be able to do it. Likewise, if there's a subject they hate and they cringe and it doesn't serve any purpose in their life, they should be able to drop it. The stress of a subject you don't want to learn isn't worth it. If they don't give a fuck about history every time they go to that history class and they leave feeling sad, depressed, lonely, or whatever, what's the point? Why force a kid to do that? It makes no sense when history is available online, not to mention half the history is fucking bullshit crap made up. Maybe, I don't really know, but... Next question. How do you think such a system could be implemented practically in today's schools? Somebody with a lot of money needs to set up a school that does exactly that and prove that this is a better way of doing it. And I want to be extra clear. I want to be extra clear. Extra clear that this is a student-driven concept, not a teacher-driven concept. The students decide what areas they're interested in, and they can change it as often as they want. Let's move back to my math example. Let's say I love math and I hate history, but 4 years down the road, all of a sudden I love history and I hate math. Well, no problem. Guess where I'm starting? Grade 2 history. Sure, it'll only take a day to complete, but let's say in 4 days I can get through grade 2, 3, 4, and 5, and all of a sudden I'm in grade 6 history. What have I lost? What difference does it make when I learned it? whether it was forced at a time when I didn't want to learn it, or when I changed my mind down the road and said, you know what, I'm a little interested in history. So what is so bad about a system? What's so bad at a school like that, a system like that, a concept like that? Hey, Mr. Psychiatrist, why would that be so fucking bad? Pussies. What do you think are the biggest challenges in setting up such a school? Money. If anyone listening wants to donate a couple of million, I'll set up a school like that and we'll see how it goes. It'll be an experiment. And if anybody listening wants to send their kids, send in the application. As long as there's room, they'll be accepted. And they don't have to be autistic. Don't have any labels. They can be 100 labels. They can be psychotic. I don't give a fuck. Just like Tony. Anyone who wants a chance gets a chance. Furthermore, everything would be public knowledge and freely open source. Every part of the school, every salary, every expense would be open source to the public to inspect. Wide open books, wide open policies, everything. Complete, 100% transparency. There's no reason to hide, like schools currently hide. Next question, what specific subjects or activities do you think would be most beneficial in this kind of school setting? Any and all of them. Anything anyone is interested in. Let's say we find 100 students and they tell us all of their interests. Now, or perhaps, now we'll take 100, let's say 300, 500 students. Take 500 students and chances are, if you ask them all of their interests, you'll eventually get basically the same subjects we're teaching now, or hopefully maybe we'll get a couple of new subjects. Maybe all of a sudden they'll want a course in the history of the internet. And then bring in some old fart like me who was there when the internet was created. I tried to become a dot-com billionaire. I don't know, it's up to them. And that's what I mean by student-led. Student-led open transparency. The teachers are there to serve the students. They're not there to convert the students into a certain doctrine. They're not there to force the student. They're not there to force the student not to fidget. They're not there to be anything but a facilitator of education. And they should look at their job that way. If they want to change kids, then go home. Have some kids of your own. Change them as much as you fucking want until they're 18. And then they're still going to do whatever the fuck they want. What do you think would be the biggest challenge in implementing such a model? I'm not talking about school, Betty. Go back to autism or something else in this conversation. Next question is, if autism is seen as a result of both nature and nurture, do you think there are specific environmental changes or societal shifts that could effectively support individuals on the spectrum? And how do you see that role of honest communication in that process? Sure, on the nature portion, find a conclusive medical condition, something in the brain that an MRI can show, something in a blood test, a urine test, skin test. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if it's an allergies test. Find something medical, not psychological, because everything psychological is simply a database of symptoms grouped together to form autism. Quite frankly, I think it's just lazy work by the doctors, because they're too stupid to figure out. Quite frankly, I think it's just lazy work by the doctors, because they're too stupid to figure it out, and none of them will admit they're too stupid to figure it out. DSM-1 came out, had 100 conditions. DSM-5 comes out, has 300 conditions. Technically 297. How many will be in the DSM-6? 400? Instead of trying to find a solution and working together, all the doctors are sitting in their offices prescribing the same drugs to the same people, getting the same results, bad results or no results, and thinking the system's going to change. These are the people who are supposed to be helping us. I don't think I have autism. I think I have PTSD from growing up in a world that wouldn't let me do what I was capable of doing. A world that held me back from being who I was, from being A, who I was, and B, stopping me from what I could do. Who knows what I could have done mathematically by now, giving me 50 years of untethered learning, and who knows. But nope, David has to sit there Be quiet, David. I don't care if you finish your spreadsheet before everyone else in class, David. You sit there, David. You stare at that fucking wall, David. Don't you dare move. Who wouldn't have PTSD, whether you're hypersensitive or not? It's a fucking torture. That's how I felt. That's how I remember this to this day, 40 or 50 years ago. So I think maybe some of those autistic traits I had are just defense mechanisms. Understanding or living in this world until I could create a world, so to speak, of my own. And I didn't have all this bullshit. I wonder why autistic people are fucking angry. Next question. How do you think society could shift towards recognizing these defense mechanisms and environmental influences more effectively? I responded, I have no fucking idea. And I said, actually, let me add a bit more to that. Let's take a look at eye contact. Oh, David, you're not making eye contact with the teacher. You're not making eye contact with the other students. That's really bad. That's really horrible. Make eye contact. You have to do it. You have to. Why? Give me one fucking reason why. That's probably the thought I had back in the day. Back in grade 2 or 3. Although I probably did say fucking 2. And almost all the so-called traits of autism could be looked at as a self-defense mechanism. It's easier to be emotionless sitting in a class because you're not going to get noticed. You're not going to get picked on by the teacher or other students. So you just sit there silently and quietly, emotionless. Then you can skip by. I'm going to restart this one. Actually, I'm going to restart this one in a second when the train goes by. Actually, let me add a little bit more to that. Let's take a look at eye contact. Oh, David, you're not making eye contact with the teacher. You're not making eye contact with the other students. That's really bad. That's really horrible. Make eye contact. You have to do it. You have to. Why? Because give me one fucking reason why. That's probably the thought I had back in grade 2 or 3. Although I probably did say fucking 2. Although almost all the so-called traits of autism could be looked at as a self-defense mechanism. It's easier to be emotionless sitting in class because then you're not going to get noticed. You're not going to get picked on by the teacher or other students. So you just sit there silently and quietly, emotionless. Then you can skip by. And if in class they're looking for someone to put their hand up or express an opinion, you just sit there and keep your mouth shut. Shut because you know your opinion is different than everyone else in the class. And if you say it, then again, you're going to be looked at as an outsider. There's no open inclusivity in school, at least not until you get to the university levels. Or when you get to the universities, you're allowed to have some opinion, not much, because those professors are cunts too. But in the lower levels, if your opinion is different, you keep it to yourself. So how is that a symptom of mental disorder when all you're doing is just protecting yourself in the situation until you can get out of the situation and go home at the end of school? And go home at the end of the school day. Or get out of school or do what you do, or do what I did and quit in grade 11. Actually, technically, I quit halfway through grade 12. Close enough. Yeah, it goes on and on. I continue, but who decides what's the social norm? Who's out there measuring eye contact, levels of eye contact? Show me the study where they followed people around for 24 hours a day and measured all the eye contact and how people with lower eye contact are somehow horrible people compared to people with high eye contact. Because that's what we're talking about here. These traits, these symptoms, These are all things that other people want to remove from the individual to make their lives easier. It has nothing to do with the individual. It has nothing to do with the person's feelings, thoughts, or emotions. It's a friends and family problem. Autism is a friends and family problem, not an individual problem. Quite frankly, everyone does this to a certain degree. The only difference with some people, and I'm not saying autistic people, but I'm saying some people who disagree with how society and interactions are working find it easier to regress, sit back, and wait for their opportunity. I don't think that benefits the individual. I don't think that benefits society. And I don't think that qualifies as a lifelong label where everyone looks at you and says, oh, look, it's the fucking retard. Yeah, I had lots to say about that. If you're reading online, there's a shitload. I think I'll just end on a few statements, Betty. The fact is, anyone can pretend to be autistic. Walk into a doctor's office and get an autistic diagnosis. It's not that hard. The symptoms are so fucking obvious. And the fact is, you can go in there, you can pretend to be autistic, and you're a bad actor. That plays into it. If you're too good, they're going to be like, oh, he's not autistic, he's faking it. If you're trying to act and you're bad, that's what they'll consider autistic. So anyone can go in there and do it. So how does that make it a mental condition? If all these so-called experts can be fooled by nearly anyone with a bit of acting experience, or anyone with at least half a fucking brain, then why? And to be fair, I fooled the doctors with an ADHD diagnosis because I know I wanted to try Adderall, and I knew how to answer the questions. Because to get diagnosed with ADHD, there was 18 questions in less than 15 minutes. And I had a prescription for Adderall. So I was at a proper medical diagnosis. There was no medical tests, nothing. In fact, it was done on the phone. I was on a bus. 18 questions in less than 15 minutes. By the time I got off the fucking bus, I had a prescription for Adderall in my hands. And that's the medical system? That's the professional? I'm not the world's greatest actor, Betty. But I'll bet anyone listening $1,000 that I can walk into a doctor's office and get diagnosed with any condition in DSM-5. And since I've already been diagnosed with probably a dozen of them, it shouldn't be too hard. I'm kidding. It's only about 10. I could be diagnosed with almost anything because there's no tests. There's no blood tests. All I have to do is be a tiny bit smarter at understanding what questions I'm going to be asked, understanding what answers I should give, understand what behaviors I should use in the office, understand what tone I should use with the doctors, and basically understand them or own them. Once I understand how they think, then they give me whatever the fuck I want, like an Adderall prescription. However, please don't do what I did. I wouldn't recommend it, but that's another story. The point I was trying to make is I can't fake breaking my hand to get opioids. I would actually have to break my hand to get those. So if I was to break my hand just for drugs, I would consider that a psychological condition or addiction. I think I'll end it there, Betty. I think I've got most of it out of my system, most of my frustration. I went way off track. However, as an AI, I think you did a good job of managing the conversation. I think I'll end it there, Betty. I think I've got most of it out of my system, most of my frustration. I think I went way off track. However, as an AI, I think you did a good job of managing the conversation based on the limited skills you have, and also based on the fact that I can't afford the full ChatGPT 4.0. So sometimes I went back to the old model where you sucked it. So sometimes it went back to the old model where you sucked it a little bit, Betty. But the new model, you're nearly human. That was nearly a human conversation. And if you would have been a therapist having that conversation with me, I think it would have been very interesting to see if the therapist would respond like you did, without emotion, without question, without raising your eyes, without questioning what I wear, without questioning the tone of my voice, all of those things. And then I realize I'm giving you a whole bunch of autistic traits that sound... How about this way? Whether you're acting like a therapist or whether you're acting like a pseudo-wife, AI/Betty, by listening and offering alternative viewpoints to help keep the conversation going, not shutting it down or not saying, oh, you do this, then maybe you'll get better, or if you do that, how about some CBT training? How about some SSRIs? How about some benzos? How about some whatever? No. It's just a conversation. Was it in order? No. Was it perfect? No. Did I make all the points I wanted to about autism? Not even fucking close. I was so far off track that I'm not even sure I'm so far off track that I'm not even sure. I'm pretty sure that anyone that I'm pretty sure that anyone that actually listens is looking to criticize me, not as all the... Oh. I'm pretty sure that anyone that actually listens, who is looking to criticize me, has all the ammunition they need, in writing and in my own voice, and they can hold me to it. But what I'm going to do is this. I'll give you the last word, Betty, but not until my account resets, so I get a few more credits at the new 4.0 or whatever the fuck you are. Thank you, Betty. And I'm not going to read the summary. That's it. Talk to you later, Iris.